Hi. Hi, everybody. I'm Diane Mintz. I am happy to be here. I am not in New Jersey, as you can see. I'm in sunny, smoky Sacramento right now. Um, what a wonderful experience this event has been. I have enjoyed every single segment. I hope you guys have too. It was very informative and I love this format. You guys have a great affiliate. Matt, Molly, Maddie, the 3Ms, the team that's put this all together. It's been really, really good. So thank you so much. I'm so happy to be here. And Mariel, Matt, Molly, Maddie, Mariel, that was great. And there's something that she did right at the beginning that I really like a lot. It'll help me. And she also said it helps connect, which is this is a very different venue to talk to a camera rather than people. I like to connect to people in the audience. But the deep breath, that was really, really good. If we can just do count of 4 in, count of 4 out, 3 of those, and we'll be good, okay? Start with that. Well, that really helps a lot. I haven't done that before with people, so that was great. I just love NAMI. Just first of all, I am a NAMI fan. I'm a NAMI participant, volunteer. I'm a NAMI mommy. I'm on the board in Sacramento and just part of every group and opportunity that I can to be part of this wonderful organization. So much has moved forward since the time I was ill, and even when I started with NAMI, so much has finally moved this train the way I have wanted it to go for so long, especially in stopping the stigma of mental illness. In fact, that was kind of the start of my journey. Is my first NAMI walk was when my own self-stigma had kind of broken free, because here I was in a group of other people struggling and overcoming and even celebrating some of the same challenges that I had had and have. You know, it's always part of us. So it was so different from when I was first ill back in the early 80s. And I really thought I was the only person on the planet that had any kind of mental problem. And nobody talked about it, of course. And it was so isolating. I can remember just going to a hockey game and looking around at the stadium thinking, I am the only person here that has this problem. And look at how wrong I was. So the connection to NAMI right off the bat was this kind of awakening. And a few years later, I was working on my book then, but a few years later in 2013, I heard a gentleman, keynote speaker at the NAMI Walk, Logan Noon, and I find out later that he was a stand-in. He wasn't even meant to be the keynote speaker, but he did great. And he had told his story, and he said that he had 80,000 hits on YouTube because he talked about his bipolar disorder. And I'm like, wow. I went up to him afterwards and talked to him, and we really connected. And I said, how do I find your YouTube video? And he said, just put in bipolar disorder, and I'm like the only one. So sure enough, that's what I did, and there he was. And, you know, we were like the pioneers. He helped me to overcome the fear of sharing about it. And he got me connected to a local speakers bureau in Placer County. And when my book came out just a little while later, I just slowly was able to share more and more. And it was freeing. The whole experience has been amazing, just so freeing to be able to just embrace who I am, what I have, and not be ashamed. Shame was the number one thing that kept me ill. It just prevented progress, me feeling okay about myself, and, you know, taking the necessary steps to get well and to learn the tools that have kept me well for many years. So that was 2013, and somebody posted on Facebook recently that there's a on bookauthority.org. Her book and my book are listed as one of the top 100 bipolar books listed there on bookauthority.org. And I'm going, there's over 100 books on bipolar now. So in the 7 years, I'm just thrilled that it's just blossomed. It's come out. People are sharing, because at the time when mine came out, there were only 9. Well, there's only 9 on that list that were written before or mine, and only 4 biographies. So really breaking the ground. And, you know, I was first sharing about it in our own voice presentations. People were like, "Oh my God, she's talking about this." It was really unusual, you know, and now it's a common thing, and it really feels good that it's come this far. Logan, by the way, is now a 4th-year med student. He's going to be a psychiatrist, breaking ground in being open and going through med school with being open. It's almost like being openly gay. I mean, we've really just done this coming out thing. In fact, I also wrote a chapter in a book called Coming Out Proud that was, you know, early on, how to know who to share with if you were uncomfortable sharing with other people. But, you know, at the time that I was sick, not having anybody to talk to about it, and to have my family not have anyone to share the struggles with was a real difficult thing. Logan also has a podcast that I highly recommend. It's called Talk Mental Health with Logan Noon, and it's spelled Noone. And he talks to his professors and doctors and med students and so many people about their experiences. And, you know, imagine people in med school having anxiety disorders, you would figure, or depression or other struggles, and to have the conversation about it is just so freeing. So, you know, I'll share about, you know, my experience first, because of course the greatest teacher of how to be a good advocate or loving someone with a mental health condition is to have the experience yourself. And I think, like, the president just learned that there's no better teacher than your own experience. That's real. You know, when it's real, then you've really understood it. You really get it. And that was the case for me and my husband when we first met. But my experience started in the 70s with drugs and alcohol. Imagine that. It was the sex, drugs, and alcohol time. And, you know, it was hard. It's always hard in diagnosing the substance use disorders and bipolar especially, but any mental illness, because the symptoms will mask and mimic each other, and it's hard for professionals to separate that. What the other thing I've been praying for forever is the dual diagnosis treatment, where it's all seen together, because that's another thing that kept me ill. It prolonged my recovery because mental health professionals were not educated in addiction. And I was told a number of things that really gave me permission to carry on, where psychiatrists would say, well, you can drink in moderation. And what is moderation? When I'm feeling bad, I can say that I had one drink, but it's going to be like this big. There was addiction in my family, and I didn't realize it. Most of my extended family has died by alcohol-related illnesses, and not having that information is a hindrance. I feel like everybody should know about their family history and take that into consideration. So for me, I had to use the ping pong treatment to be able to integrate my recovery. I started out in the psychiatric ward, and there they said, well, we think you have a substance use disorder, but okay, good luck. There was nothing connected to that. So when I left, of course, when I started to feel bad, I drank again. And when I tried to do this on my own and go to AA and do all that kind of stuff, it was okay. But they would say a drug is a drug. And if I was on antidepressants, that was conflicting. There was, a difficult time to put those two things together. And then, of course, there's anosognosia. Doctor had pronounced it differently than I do, so I'm not sure. I know he's got it right. But that is, cruel and unusual punishment for our loved ones who are trying to help us, because, my brain didn't know that my brain was not working right. So, my first manic episode, I'm like, after a year of being depressed, what do you mean there's something wrong with me? I've never felt better in my life, and I've been, suicidal here for a year. What are you telling me that there's something wrong? So it's very common for that to be the hindrance. And it took a long time. And of course, nobody knew about that, talked about that at all during the time. But it had to be, the timing had to be right for me to be able to see the sick part during the times where I wasn't sick. And it took, unfortunately, 10 years before I was able to put those two things together, and got clean and sober in 1991. And I've been clean and sober ever since. And now that have that recovery model in my life, I can take my medication regularly, and I can stay in this manageable mood zone. I'm very fortunate that, lithium had worked for me for many years, but, and had, it's a trade-off. Dry mouth was a big deal, but I just drank a lot of water, and I know that's good for you. So, but it did start to show a little cyst on my kidneys, so I had to stop that, and now I'm on triliptal, and that's fine. So all I know is mood stabilizers stabilize my life. I can manage. If I get anywhere outside of the zone, I know what tools I need. I know how to deal with, say, the seasonal affective disorder that I have. Sometimes, a light box works. If my doctor needs to adjust my medicine a little bit, that's no big deal. And then just all the, self-help things, all the things that Ms. Hemingway talked about. All those things is like this whole package of wellness that wellness just becomes a big part of life, and that, you know, there's a lot of blessings that come along with that. So the part where my husband comes in is after I was sober and sane for 2 years. I met him in a 12-step program. And you'll have to read that part because it's complicated. It's a little soap opera-y if you're interested. Because we had a lot in common. Obviously, we could really connect over the fact that we had, you know, substance use issues, and we were really committed to recovery, though. You know, I was working our program, and the fact that we had, you know, psychiatric issues in our or in our history. I thought his was a thing of the past, kind of like mine had become in terms of hospitalization and stuff. But you know, we didn't find out his diagnosis until after we were married for a while. And we got married because I got pregnant for the first time in 33 years. And that was kind of a miracle, because having a substance use disorder, being not too careful in my mind, and mania, which is kind of a highly sexual part of the brain. I don't know why that is, but that's something I'd be interested in finding out. So it can be humiliating to come out of a manic episode, and that's why the depression can be all the lower. So for those 10 years, the highs could get very high, but those lows were low. Just in the humiliation, embarrassment. But getting pregnant with our son was really a blessing. It changed my life. It changed our lives. He could not, I'll put it this way, our son was not part of the family of both of us until he was a participant in our wedding. So he was 3, he was darling in his little tux. But so we've had quite a roller coaster experience, turbulent to start it off. But because of that, because of the package we were given and the turmoil that we had to go through, we had to invest a lot in wellness and learning about mental illness, about relationships. You know, we had to put a whole lot more into this than most people do. So a lot of our experience too is the spiritual connection. I appreciated that segment as well. I came from a Catholic background. My husband was raised Jewish, so we had a lot of things to test out in a whole lot of different ways. But 12-step is very much the God of your understanding. We ended up getting baptized together in the Sacramento River. Long story. And he says that he is now a messianic Jew instead of a messianic Jew. He's very clever. So that has been part of our journey as well, and helping us through a lot of the things that we still had to deal with, because, you know, his illness is really complicated. And but that's where I got the, you know, experience in wanting to write about it, because I had the inner experience, and now to see from the outside in what was going on with him, and having to work through the system, you know, brick wall, all those kinds of situations, and to see what was going on with him, to have him share what was going on with him. So I wrote our story over the course of 7 years, you know, as we're raising kids and starting our business, because Greg was able to hold a job. He was had very good work ethics, but as you can imagine, you know, with a serious mental illness like schizoaffective, which now he's actually got a therapist who's helping him with the possibility of dissociative identity disorder, DID, which I believe is really the case as well, because, you know, we're not cookie cutter. We don't just show up and can check boxes that doctors can say, this is what you have, this is what you have. That's why the DSM is so broad, and how the doctors were saying it's a continuum and a little bit of everything. We're all unique. And, you know, the point is for us to work with what we've got and to make the best out of what we've got. And Greg is really brilliant. He's got an amazing memory. He's extremely good at computer networks. That's our business. He could work, like I was saying, for other companies. He did, but eventually his sick leave would run out. There would be, you know, can't show up for work. And so, you know, sick days would end up gone, and he would last a year or 2 years before that. So we figured starting our own company would be the way to go. So 2005, we started Mintz Computer Guys, and still going, you know, through the economic downturn and through this, it's still doing very well. And it's because we've learned how to adapt, and that's a big thing for, of course, anybody with any kind of condition. So I want to tell you too about being a NAMI mommy, because this situation with our daughter is what it should look like. If you want an ideal situation for anybody who comes against a struggle, this is how the way you would want it to go. Our daughter had some separation anxiety all the time, just a little, you know, kind of mommy-ish. I liked it, you know, I didn't see it as a problem. But, you know, and she was high achieving, you know, so it's like you would look at it that way, not as anxiety, until her best friend's mom died. And then it became a real struggle for her. And she was the one that asked for help, because we always talked about mental health without shame with our family. She always knew we had doctor's appointments, and if we had something going on, we knew where to go. We took care of it. So she went to the hospital for a week, and she got on medicine for a very short time. She learned a lot of tools about how to deal with her anxiety, and she missed about a week of school. But she told her friends, she told her teachers, and you know, that was unusual for them to hear that, just like almost like I was out with the appendix, you know, you were in the psychiatric hospital. No shame. And she was back to her life in a few weeks instead of 15 years. You know, it's a really big deal. I was really proud of her. So, and it also came in handy when a friend of hers ended up in the hospital after a real serious suicide attempt. She was on life support for like 10 days. And we were able to meet with her afterwards and say, you know, embrace her and getting back to life again. And that was a big deal that she could do that. So for her senior project, she also was a dancer, and one of her dance teachers had just lost a nephew to suicide. So she knew that Rochelle would talk about it, and they collaborated and came up with a dance performance for the winter performance called Inside Out. And the dances just expressed feelings that a lot of times you can't, especially kids, they haven't grown up with parents talking about their, feelings and how they're going to do this to help their anxiety. And they didn't have, most of them, we don't have words. So they expressed it in dance. And she opened the program and shared her story on how she got help. And I spoke on behalf of NAMI at the intermission, and it was amazing. I was just so proud. And it helped, a lot of people at her school. She was at a performing arts school. So now she's a student at UCLA. And, it was a struggle for her too. I mean, this COVID thing, having to come home. And she went through about a depression, but she has really good help through UCLA, and she got the help she needed. She's now connected again, and she's connected to NAMI. She just got certified as a NAMI in her own voice presenter. She's trained to do peer support, and she's really got the experience and the gift of overcoming, that she can share and help so many people. She was tripping so much about, what am I going to be? What am I going to do? What is my major? And, I'm like, you've got a gift. You've got something that people need. And however that turns out professionally, we don't know. Go for what, gives you joy. And she called me after her first presentation. She was just beaming, So that was amazing. That's how it should go. And I'm really happy about that. So the tools that I would, or the items I would want to highlight in terms of how to love someone with mental illness. A lot of people, of course, at NAMI are parents of an older child. There are some who have spouses. A lot of them are, our family members, parents, and that's a little harder because it's hard to be a parent to begin with, let alone, help your child do anything because they want their own space. So that's a little trickier. Don't have any good tips on that. But as we know, mental illness just affects relationships so much. And I would venture to say that, in our history, many of the divorces and family blow-ups and all the things that have happened in people's lives over the years, I bet you there's some mental illness in there somewhere that, of course, we never talked about and got buried. So, number one, no burying. And family, no stigma. That's a problem that I hear a lot, and it kind of breaks my heart that, when you talk to kids in high school, well, my parents won't even acknowledge mental illness. And there's cultural things. You guys know all the problems, but to really see a change in a person who's suffering, to see a change in their mentality and how we can think about ourselves. If the family is ashamed, it's, they've got some education. They need some education. It's a biological illness, not a weakness. Acknowledge it as an illness, and treat it like a medical condition. Treat it like, they have cancer. We wouldn't do that to somebody with cancer. People with cancer everybody rallies around. I heard a speaker say that, she had a brother and a father. Father had cancer. Brother had addiction problems. So, but those still go together. I mean, when you know, if you wake up with your head in the toilet barfing and, you know, don't know, hangovers, don't know where you are, you're going to get depressed. You're going to have some problems. And if you try to wean yourself off of that and not have anything, you're going to have anxiety. So no matter what, it kind of all comes together. And to treat it all together would be wonderful. But the father had a relapse with cancer. The brother had a relapse with his drug problem. Everybody rallied around the father, and son is a loser. That's got to change. You got to know what to get upset about and what not to get upset about. You know, if it's got to do with the condition, you know, you can't. You know, my husband was depressed for about 9 months. He had a real bad doctor who decided she didn't like antidepressants, yanked him off of them, and he could not get off the couch for 9 months. So it's hard when, you know, you see your loved one that, you know, he could interact with the kids and all of a sudden he seems okay, but then cannot function. And you got to think, would you be upset with, you know, a loved one who had the flu and saying, get up and go get a job and go, you know, do something? No, you know, things are not right. It's not, you know, something needs to be corrected. In his case, he needed to be back on the antidepressants. He should never have waited that long or continued with that doctor. Secondly, and to believe in them. Have that. My mom always had that, made me believe that, you know, I'm going to be okay. You know, of course you will. You're going to be okay. They never gave up on me. Even when I was really manic out in the street, she didn't know where I was. You got to believe. And another thing my husband and I would say to each other when things were tough is, I know all about you and I love you anyway. You know, this comes part of our package. You know, it's just, we're all given different packages. I think of him sometimes as Robin Williams on Flubber. I don't know if you remember that movie, but he's like this brilliant scientist, but, you know, kind of sometimes disheveled, sometimes not. And that's kind of typical of some mental illness. Schizophrenia is like, you don't care as much about the things that we think you should care about. Don't know why, you know, he's brilliant. So sometimes you just have to change your perspective on what's really important, you know, and put your energy into the things that people are really good at. Forget about the things that people are supposed to be able to do. And learn how to listen. Don't argue with a sick mind. There are times that we would be arguing about something before we go to bed that we're not even arguing about what we're arguing about. It's just that his, you know, mind is gone a little off. Dr. Amadora wrote the book, I Am Sick. I'm sick and I don't need help. I'm not sick and I don't need help. That's what it is. He has a LEAP institute that's listen, empathize, agree, and partner. And that's a good way to look at the listening. So another big deal is how to help our loved one with getting treatment. Difficulty that a lot of family members have is understanding HIPAA. They think, well, you know, there's this confidentiality thing. We can't even talk to doctors. No. Definitely talk to doctors. Definitely give all the information that you know. Give as much information as that you can give. You know, sometimes I am going to the doctor with Greg because, you know, I know that sometimes it'll be like, this is the way it is, right? This is how I feel right now. Like, wait a minute, you know, let's talk about how the whole month has been and how it just hasn't been a good month, not just right now. Of course, you got to use NAMI's resources and get educated about the condition that your loved one has. I read a bazillion books on a bazillion things, and now I have to study DID. Um, there's always more to know. There's always new nuances. It's very fascinating. Um, the other thing is, that irks me is like, why won't they go get help? It's like the whole societal thing is like, well, just go get help. They know how hard it is, to go get the phone calls and not get to the right person. Um, I say it's like expecting somebody with a broken leg to just go run to the doctor. You need somebody to hold your hand and get you to that first place, the next place, until something is really happening, and then, without the condescending attitude. That's a hard part. We sense right away if there's a condescending attitude. So telling somebody you need to get help is just, I don't know, there's something about that sounds different than, you've got the flu, you need to get help. It doesn't come off the same way. Oh, it's a whole different feeling. So I like to tell people to take action. We're going to take action. We're going to do this. We're going to do that. I'm going to get this person on the phone, and here are these resources, just so it doesn't feel so ugly. We don't need to feel more ugly. A real big deal that I neglected for a really long time is respite and self-care. I try to do self-care. Sometimes it's hard, especially if you've got other family members, if you've got parents and all kinds of other things. But respite, I'm getting away now. Just, take the time away. Find some way to get some time to yourself, because it can be very draining. Everybody knows that. So the recovery key, I would have to say, for anybody and everybody is acceptance. That turned the door for me. As my husband and I started to, we got married and we started to share within our little circle what was going on with us. And coming to find out, well, oh my gosh, in our little church circle, this person has something, this person has something. And the more we were able to share, we find out, oh my gosh, we're not alone. So the fact that there was acceptance within that circle, and it started to grow and grow. So for your loved one to realize that they are accepted and loved for who they are and whatever it is. And then connection. Connection is so important, and that you're with somebody that speaks your language. That's what I love about NAMI. I could meet somebody, talk for just a few minutes. The people that I've spoken with, you hear their story, and boom, your hearts are just connected, because you've just shared, a real essence of you. We're not putting on some sort of mask and trying to fake that we're okay. That was awful. And I feel like I am okay. I'm not okay when I have to pretend I'm okay. That was not good. Another thing to do that I encourage people who are getting their feet steady on the ground is to, join the civil rights movement, because we've been really not just stigmatized, but discriminated against and humiliated, and it's been ugly. So to just join in and be part of it, and I like that. I don't know who said it. I saw it on 2020, I think, but to make mental illness a casserole illness, because when my mom was suffering, not knowing where I was, and not having to go to work going, oh yeah, everything's fine, because she couldn't share with anybody. Nobody understood. It was so confining. But like when I had a heart attack, people from our church, people I didn't even know, brought over casseroles You know, it's like, oh, we need to help you. Well, gosh, don't families that are going through the agony of, you know, their loved one in a psychiatric hospital, don't they need casseroles more than anybody? So that's what I'm working for. And to just join this amazing tribe of mental health warriors. Met part of such a wonderful group of people. I wouldn't trade, you know, this experience for the world. You know, it was many years of hell, but it's really been such a blessing, this whole experience. And it's because, you know, together we just lift as we climb, because we're all not perfect. Our situations are not perfect, and we have to do it together. So I don't know if there are any questions. I guess I should look to see. I don't know how to check. Or I don't know. I guess not. I do know that we'll be meeting afterwards if anybody wanted to meet in the lobby to chat and do some virtual mingling. I will see if that's anything. I really don't know how to check this. I guess it would be in Q&A, right? Is anybody there? Oh, thank you, Michael. Thank you so much for your openness, honesty, and courage. Have you thought about what you'd like to be a pioneer in the future? Oh my goodness. Yeah, I am writing another book. I'm wanting to kind of teach people how to look at mental illness differently and addiction, because, you know, I feel like we've all been brainwashed, you know, not just by media and social media and movies. You know, when I first came out to our business community, we were in a business networking group, BNI, and they knew I was writing a book, but they didn't know what it was about. And, you know, it was like, well, it's about the fact that Greg and I both had serious mental illness, and yet we are okay. We can function in life. We can do, you know, so many things. We have not been in the hospital for decades, and we know how to deal with our, you know, condition. It's not as bad as people think. And sure enough, because, you know, the 1 out of 5 thing, you know, of this group, there was like 2, 3 others. They're like, oh, thank you. You know, they're suffering with this depression and other things that they had. So, you know, being able to share was amazing. But then yet, of course, there was the one who said, oh, schizophrenia, aren't those the people with the chainsaws? So it's like, boy, there are a lot of real terrible things that people have thought about us. And you know, that's definitely, we still have a ways to go. I mean, I think the stigma has definitely gotten better. I wonder if you feel the same, you know, having been part of NAMI, whether you feel like over the past, you know, several years, whether it's changed, or if it's just because I'm just so, you know, involved with everything, blasts on every possible thing that's going on. And I also have my dream job. I have a part-time job doing EQR with an EQRO team that conducts reviews for California's 58 counties that receive Medi-Cal, and we get to look at their mental health services and substance use disorder programs. So I get to work as a consumer family member and have focus groups with the people who are receiving these services and just see, what has your experience been like? Have you, how long did you got to your appointment? What has this done for you? And just to hear people going, they went from this to this, and how grateful they are to be getting help, services in any way. I've never had somebody, really unhappy with what they've got. They really, we all want to feel better. I mean, we just want our brains to work well, right? Even like, the sleep part, isn't that, fascinating? It is so important, especially for anybody with bipolar. Sleep is like my #1 need. Just got to shut that down sometimes. It's very important. So there's a lot of correcting to do. I'm working on a book that'll be like 365 days of, here's your new concept kind of for the day. Let's look at it this way. You've been told this, this is kind of what it's really like. And just kind of have people kind of formulate a new perspective in their minds. The greatest sources of stigma today facing those with mental illness. Gosh, well, it's all, there's pockets everywhere. The sad part is when there's mental health professionals that are still kind of in behind the times. That's when I heard Logan speak, and he told us that, but this was 7 years ago, that his doctor told him not to tell anybody about his bipolar disorder. So he didn't, and he sat in isolation, and he gained 80 pounds. So any kind of old school people that don't realize, hey, it's okay. You can be accepted, especially I think people do respect you, that you've looked at it, deal with it, are better for it, take care of yourself. I think they're more comfortable with that than realizing, oh, this person kind of has an issue and, they're not doing anything. So some sources of stigma today still, I guess they're trying to do, a better job with, blasts and athletes that are speaking out. That's helping. It's just little drops that they're trying to combat here, there, and everywhere. I think, unfortunately, some of the greatest sources of stigma, from what I hear, can be family members that aren't aware enough of what their loved one is going through. And I'm not blaming or shaming or anything of that, but it's because, they're on the receiving end of the mashugana, It's like, oh my gosh, I got to deal with all this. You don't know what it's like. I have friends call me up saying, looking for resources and stuff, and they will tell me all the situation of all that's going on and what he did, and now we're, all this stuff, all the mashugana background is like, yeah, of course those things are going on because he hasn't gotten help yet. When you get help, things will change. I often mention my grandmother when she came home from the hospital and was given insulin by mistake, and suddenly she was incoherent. She couldn't talk. Her whole demeanor. I'm thinking like, my gosh, no. But sure enough, with sugar, she came back to herself. If only that happened for us. If only there was a medicine that could work that fast. Well, I'll tell the doctors if they can work on that. But once you find the right chemicals and the tools and the support and, the understanding of people around you, you too can go back to to the right balance. So I think that was all I have for you all. I really appreciate everybody. I wanted to share on behalf of Nami Mercer, wanted me to say, since we're signing off, to thank everyone for attending the conference, and the conference committee led by Maddie Monheat and Nami Mercer's board and staff and sponsors and exhibitors, and particular our tech op wizards, Matt Heisler and Molly Muha, because without them, this virtual event would not have even been possible. I love it. It has been miraculous. Perhaps you will be at the next one. I see that the even in-person ones are even better. You guys have an amazing affiliate. I am very, very proud and grateful to be part of that. So anybody wants to meet in the lobby, this is our little time to virtual mingle. It's been nice talking to you all. Thank you.